We have an inflation problem. They just don't want to admit that. The United States has a credibility problem. The world no longer has confidence in our ability to pay our debts without it creating massive inflation. And Trump is one of the reasons that the world is losing confidence in us. And he's the one that is beating the Fed up about cutting interest rates, slashing interest rates, firing FOMC members, sticking his own people in there, taking over the Fed. This is challenging the idea that the Fed is independent. Global central banks aren't anywhere near finished buying. They are ongoing buyers. They have so many dollars to divest, and they've got to buy gold. But on silver, because the central banks were never even part of the silver story, that's why silver took so long to move. Silver now is being bought, I believe, by retail investors or some institutions that now realized how cheap it was, but it's still cheap. I think anything below 100 still is cheap. So $50 silver is still cheap.
The price of gold going above $4,000 has shocked the financial world, but instead of admitting the real reason for it, the mainstream media are rushing to change the story. They say it's European investors, that it's only temporary, or that it's because of uncertainty abroad. But the truth is much simpler and much scarier. Gold is rising not due to prosperity, but because people around the world are losing faith in how the US manages its money. People all over the world are starting to understand that the US can't pay its debts without causing inflation to skyrocket. As countries move away from the dollar, they're turning to physical gold, which is the only asset that doesn't have counterparty risk. PeterSchiff, a well-known economist and the head of Euro-Pacific Asset Management, says this isn't a speculative rally, it's a systemic repricing of trust. Central banks are leading the way by selling off dollar reserves and piling up gold at record levels. Retail investors have only just started to get into the market. In the meantime, silver, which central banks have long ignored, is finally waking up as institutional and retail buyers realize how cheap it still is. As this quiet monetary revolution happens, gold and silver will change the meaning of value in the next 10 years. Now, we present the clips from PeterSchiff's interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
I wouldn't want to bet on it. And even if we get a pullback, I don't expect the pullback to be significant. I think there's too much buying that's going to be coming into the market for there to be that big of a pullback, and therefore it doesn't make any sense to wait for one. It makes much more sense to do exactly on these market wraps every week, which is just buy, right? Don't wait for Monday. Don't even wait for Sunday night. You watch this video, go and buy gold or silver from Schiff Gold and do it now, right away. Don't wait. If it's Friday night you're watching this, buy Friday night. Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, same thing. Even Sunday morning, because chances are there won't be a big move until the Asian markets open for trading later Sunday night. You want to get in before that, because so far every Monday these markets gap up. This week was no exception. Gold was up like $70 an ounce on Monday. Silver was up big too, maybe $1. I forget exactly how much, but everybody who took my advice and bought over the weekend captured all of this week's gains. You got the 3% gain in gold, and you got the 4.5% gain in silver. Now, my guess is, given this volatility that's going on in the stock markets, given the risk and the uncertainty now with these higher tariffs and the reimposition of that kind of risk, now that gold has already closed above 4,000, that is a significant psychological breakthrough. And silver hitting an all-time record high. That's the one thing that hasn't happened. Gold was hitting record highs, but silver had not. And that was one of the reasons I kept telling everybody, buy some silver, because it hasn't even gotten back to its 1980 peak. Well, now it took out the 1980 peak. Silver finally made an all-time record high, and it closed at an all-time closing high. So you have silver breaking out above 50. You have gold breaking out above 4,000, I think it's far more likely that money is going to rush in to buy that breakout than is going to cash out and take profits. In fact, I think the profit taking already happened on Thursday. I think the guys that wanted to sell the highs already did it. And then some weaker hands got flushed out because they were afraid that the market was going to drop more. And so they got out, which is great. You always want to shake out, the weaker players, the leverage players, the players that don't have real conviction in the trade. Get rid of that dead wood, and it's easier for the market to go up. So I would not be surprised if there is a huge move up again in gold and silver. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if silver gaps above 51 on Monday. And who knows where gold's going to be? I mean, gold could hit 4,100. I mean, maybe gold will be up $100, or it closed around 4,018 or something like that. So it doesn't quite need to be up $100. But if it's up $50, it's at a new all-time record high. But to me, I think it's very likely that that's going to happen. But getting back to what I was talking about in the media has finally been talking about gold. And the frustrating part about it is they have no idea why it's going up. And the funny part is how they try to attribute it to everything other than the actual problem, because they don't want to have to admit that gold at 4,000 is not a good sign, right? Because they want to pretend that everything is great, especially the Republicans, especially if you watch Fox or, watch Larry Kudlow's show, right? Because they think the economy is booming, nothing could be better, giving it all credit to Donald Trump, right? So there's nothing to worry about. Inflation is gone. We have the hottest economy in the world. The U.S. is the strongest economy in the world. But why is gold at 4,000? It's right. If all these good things are happening, why is gold flashing this warning sign? And so they're trying to dismiss what's happening by saying, well, it's not really a warning. I thought one of the funniest explanations that the Kudlow crew came up with was that it was Europeans that are buying because they're worried about their economies. They're worried about inflation. So they're the ones that are hedging, right? But of course, gold is going up in dollars too. It's not just going up in euros. We have an inflation problem. They just don't want to admit that. The United States has a credibility problem. The world no longer has confidence in our ability to pay our debts without it creating massive inflation. And Trump is one of the reasons that the world is losing confidence in us, because he signed on to the big, beautiful bill, which took the Biden deficits and made them worse. And he's the one that is beating the Fed up about cutting interest rates, slashing interest rates, firing FOMC members, sticking his own people in there, taking over the Fed. This is challenging the idea that the Fed is independent. And this is scaring our creditors. And, the media is also trying to pretend. I heard some people talking about how, investors have been driving this, retail investors. No, they're not. I know for a fact this has got nothing to do with retail investors. The retail business has been slow. It's picked up a little bit over the last few weeks, but it's still slow. And it's not just at Schiff Gold. The retail public is just getting in on this trade. Investors are finally being told by their Main Street, Wall Street firms to include gold in their portfolios. They haven't been responsible for the run-up. So gold has gone from 2,000 to 4,000 with very little private investor participation. It's all been driven by global central banks. And global central banks aren't anywhere near finished buying. They are ongoing buyers. They have so many dollars to divest, and they've got to buy gold. So now the investing public is just joining. So the upward pressure on gold is going to intensify. But on silver, because the central banks were never even part of the silver story, that's why silver took so long to move. Silver now is being bought, I believe, by retail investors or some institutions that now realized how cheap it was. But it's still cheap, right? I think anything below 100 still is cheap. So $50 silver is still cheap. I mean, because $50 is what some people paid for silver in 1980. There's not that many things that you could buy that are at the same price they were in 1980. So silver is a bargain. And so even though the media is now focusing on gold and silver, I don't think that that's some kind of time to sell, cash out, everybody is buying. In fact, I think the gold story is going to die for a while until it's 5,000. And then once gold hits 5,000, they may start talking about it again. But it'll probably drift away from the headlines, and the media will just go back to covering other things.
The market is showing once again that real things are worth more than digital promises. Bitcoin continues to decline, even though gold and silver are hitting new all-time highs. This shows how weak the digital gold story is. For years, people who promote Bitcoin have tried to compare it to real, sound money. But when real monetary pressure hits, investors trust the metals, not the tokens. Even though the dollar is getting stronger, gold continues to rise. This is a clear sign that people are losing faith in fiat currencies. At the same time, silver is finally entering its long-awaited breakout phase. $50 is now the new psychological floor, so every dip looks more like a chance than a risk. The bigger picture is starting to come into focus. Central banks and institutions are moving back toward tangible assets, and retail investors are just beginning to understand this trend. The monetary metals are taking back their throne as the dollar wobbles and speculative markets calm down. Let's go back to the interview.
You can't talk about gold without talking about Bitcoin as if the two have anything in common. They have nothing in common. But the Bitcoin promoters want people to believe that Bitcoin is digital gold. That's the whole story that they're trying to sell, right? That's the meme, right? It's all BS, but the media, the financial media has bought into that hook, line, and sinker, so they keep talking about Bitcoin and gold as if they're the same thing. And it doesn't even occur to them that they don't trade at all with any correlation. And that's why you're seeing Bitcoin tanking today on a day that gold and silver are hitting record highs and closing at record highs. Bitcoin is going in the other direction. If Bitcoin was digital gold, it would be rising with gold. In fact, it's supposed to be rising more than gold. It's supposed to be gold on steroids, gold 2.0. Instead, it's not, right? Bitcoin is going down just like the NASDAQ. Now, also, oil was down quite a bit today. And it actually closed below $59 a barrel, which is also, I think, a reflection of the acceleration in the trade war and also some, peace negotiations going on that may have taken a risk premium out of the oil market. I think oil is ridiculously cheap. I think it's going to reverse. But in the meantime, these low oil prices are even lower in terms of gold. This is fantastic news for these gold mining stocks. So I do think that when the price of gold rises sharply next week, if it rises sharply, there's a strong likelihood that that's going to happen, I think a lot of the people who sold their gold stocks and silver stocks are going to rush to buy them back. Problem is, there's not going to be a lot of sellers, and the prices could really explode to catch up to the move in the metal that has already taken place. The U.S. dollar also had a pretty good decline, I think 70 basis points in the dollar index today, but it still managed to close positive on the week, which is interesting because the entire time that gold and silver were rallying strong, the dollar was also going up. The dollar didn't fall until today. And if today is the beginning of a reversal of that short-term trend, and if you remember, when Trump first, announced Liberation Day, the dollar tanked. If this is kind of Liberation Day light or just kind of an escalation or a new phase of the tariffs, because now, he's really getting tough on China, maybe this will be the beginning of another big drop in the dollar. And if that happens, I believe that gold and silver will be even stronger Because if gold and silver were able to rise against a rising dollar and rise strongly, we had big up weeks today in both gold and silver, despite the fact that the dollar index rose on the week. Even with today's sharp decline, the dollar index was still up on the week. But if gold and silver could be this strong in the face of a stronger dollar, stronger against foreign currencies, imagine how much stronger gold's going to be when the dollar is weakening, because that is the environment where gold typically shines. Not with a dollar that's rising against the euro or the yen or the pound, but a dollar that's falling against those currencies. And we could have that combination next week. We could have weakness in the dollar relative to other fiat currencies, which means we'll have even more strength in gold and silver, which is, again, why I would reiterate what I advised last week, the week before, and the week before. Buy gold and silver now. If you don't own any gold and silver, well, shame on you for not buying it already. But you know what? No time like the present, right? You can't go back in time and buy it a few weeks ago. But the same thing will be true a few weeks from now. If you don't buy it now, you won't be able to go back in time later and buy it now. So just buy it, right? Don't procrastinate. Figure out how much gold and silver you need and make sure you own it. Because pretty soon, everybody's going to own it, right? And when everybody owns it, it's going to be a lot more expensive than it is now when practically nobody owns it, right? Wall Street is just getting out the idea, just starting to tell clients that they should consider gold or add gold, right? So this is going to change the dynamic in this market. And I've been saying this was going to happen for years. I knew that eventually investors would go to gold again. And one of the reasons that I think it's taken them so long to return to gold, because once upon a time, it was normal to have gold in a portfolio, right? It would be weird if you didn't. It was the hedge that everybody agreed needed to be in a portfolio. But, you know, the markets were going up for so long, people didn't think you needed a hedge. And then people started to hedge with derivatives or things like that. And so they kind of moved away from gold. But then Bitcoin came on the scene, and Bitcoin stole a lot of gold's thunder. Well, gold is in the process of stealing that thunder back. And so a lot of people got misdirected by Wall Street, and they bought Bitcoin ETFs instead of gold. Well, I think a lot of that money is going to come out. We'll see. We could have a real crash in Bitcoin on Monday if a lot of the money that went into those Bitcoin ETFs tries to come out. You know, the problem is, and I've warned, these ETFs are going to be like money roach motels, right? Your money checks in, but not much of it checks out. Because if a lot of people try to cash out, that's going to cause a real precipitous decline in Bitcoin, because there's not going to be enough volume in the spot market to handle the liquidations, and tethers don't count. You know, in prior Bitcoin crashes, you know, that there tends to be a lot of tethers that get created, and the tethers buy up the Bitcoin. Well, that won't work for the ETFs. When the ETF sells, the buyer needs cash, right? Because the brokerage firms can't stick tether in their customers' accounts. They have to put U.S. dollars in those accounts, and so they need to receive U.S. dollars when they sell the Bitcoin. So everything, I think, is lining up in gold's favor. I think this is not the end of the bull market, like some of the stock traders might have thought. 4,000 is not the top. Silver is not the top. 50 is not the top in silver. In fact, 50 is probably now the bottom of silver, right? Any dip below 50, you want to buy, because you're probably buying the floor, right? 50 is probably the new 30, right? I said the same thing when silver got above 30, that's probably the support. And that's what happened. Couple of dips below, but now here we are, 50. And 50 may be the new support. I think you're lucky to be buying silver at around $50. You're lucky that we got that sell-off. And there's probably a lot of shorts. I don't think we squeezed the shorts yet. There are a lot of shorts in silver. I think they probably came out selling on Thursday and kind of helped jackhammer the market down, trying to protect their short positions. But I think the mother of all short squeezes is coming, and it's coming for silver. And you know what? It's been a long time coming. I think the silver shorts have it coming. And so I'm not going to shed any tears for silver shorts that end up losing a lot of money. But their loss is going to be our gain. So you want to buy your silver, you want to buy your gold.
Gold and silver are sending a message that the markets can't ignore. The time of easy money and digital illusions is coming to an end. For years, financial news outlets spread the false idea that Bitcoin could take the place of gold, that fiat money could handle unlimited debt, and that inflation was only temporary. But now the truth is coming out. Gold prices over $4,000 and silver prices over $50 aren't just random events. They're signs that the system is at its breaking point. The world's central banks are quietly moving into real stores of value, while retail investors are just now starting to see what's going on. The time of paper promises is coming to an end, and real wealth is coming back into the spotlight. This isn't a trade that will only last for a short time. It's a change that will last for a generation. The reset has already begun, and those who get it early will be the ones who keep their buying power during the storm ahead. Share your thoughts on their analysis in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, please support and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video. Thanks for watching.